It was a crisp autumn morning when I found myself standing in our shared apartment, watching my roommate Alex try on my favorite jacket. We'd been roommates for almost 2 years now, sharing a modest two-bedroom apartment just off campus. You know how it goes with roommates. You start as strangers, gradually become friends, and eventually develop this unique relationship where boundaries blur in the most unexpected ways. Alex and I had reached that comfortable stage where we could borrow each other's stuff without asking, though there were still some unspoken rules about personal items. My jacket, however, had never been part of our communal property, at least not until that morning. Let me tell you about this jacket. It wasn't just any jacket. It was a vintage leather bomber jacket in a rich cognac color that I'd found at a thrift store during my sophomore year. The moment I saw it hanging there among the discarded windbreakers and faded denim, I knew it was special. It had this perfectly worn-in feel, with subtle creases at the elbows and a patina that only comes from years of wear. The leather was soft but sturdy, with a collar that could be popped up against the wind or laid flat for a more casual look. It had cost me nearly a month's coffee budget, but every time I put it on, I felt it was worth every penny sacrificed. This jacket wasn't just about staying warm. It had become something of a signature piece for me. When I wore it to class or parties, people would often comment on it. "Nice jacket," they'd say, and I'd feel this little surge of pride. It fit me perfectly, not too tight, not too loose, as if it had been tailored specifically for my frame. I'd even had a professor once stop me after class to ask where I'd found it, saying it reminded him of one he'd had in the 80s. The jacket had stories, both its own and the ones I was creating while wearing it. On this particular morning, I was running late for my 9 a.m. literature class. I'd overslept after staying up too late finishing a paper and was rushing around our apartment, gathering my books and laptop. The jacket was hanging on the hook by the door, where I'd left it the night before. I was just about to grab it when Alex emerged from the bathroom, hair still damp from the shower, dressed and ready for the day ahead. "Morning," Alex said, glancing at the chaos of papers and books I was trying to stuff into my backpack. "Late again." There was that familiar teasing tone that had become part of our daily interactions. Alex was one of those infuriatingly punctual people who never seemed rushed, even with an 8 a.m. chemistry lab that morning. I mumbled something about my alarm not going off, though we both knew that wasn't true. As I continued gathering my things, Alex walked over to the door, eyes landing on my jacket. "Is this new? Don't think I've seen it before." I looked up, surprised by the question since I'd worn the jacket countless times over the past year. "Are you serious? I wear it all the time. It's my favorite," I replied, watching as Alex reached out to touch the sleeve, fingers tracing the worn leather with unexpected interest. What happened next caught me completely off guard. Without asking, Alex took the jacket off its hook and slipped it on. I stood there, momentarily speechless, watching as my roommate adjusted the collar and rolled the shoulders, getting a feel for the fit. The sleeves were noticeably tight around Alex's arms. My roommate hit the gym regularly, while I was more of a casual jogger at best. But despite the tight fit in the sleeves, there was something about how the jacket sat on Alex's frame that made me pause. Alex said, turning to check the reflection in the small mirror by our entryway. "Not bad, right?" There was this growing grin spreading across Alex's face as our eyes met in the mirror. I couldn't quite tell if it was genuine appreciation for the jacket or amusement at my obvious discomfort seeing someone else in my prized possession. Let me explain why this moment matters. When someone tries on something you consider uniquely you, it creates this strange mix of emotions. There's a territorial feeling, that's my jacket, but also this weird curiosity about how your personal item transforms on someone else. It's like seeing your handwriting mimicked by another person, recognizable, but somehow not quite right. "The sleeves are kind of tight," I pointed out, trying to sound casual while internally hoping this would discourage any further interest in my jacket. Alex flexed slightly, making the leather strain even more around the biceps. "Yeah, but that just makes it look more fitted." Actually, there was a pause as Alex turned to the side, checking the profile in the mirror. "I think it looks better on me." That comment, delivered with a grin that grew even wider as my expression changed, hit differently than I expected. It wasn't just the words, but the confidence behind them. Alex wasn't asking a question or seeking reassurance. It was a statement delivered with absolute certainty. The kind of certainty that makes you suddenly question your own perspective. I found myself looking more critically at how the jacket fit on Alex. The shoulders seemed to sit perfectly, and while the sleeves were tight, the overall silhouette was somehow more striking than when I wore it. The color even seemed to complement Alex's complexion better than it did mine. Was it possible that my favorite jacket, the one item I felt most myself in, actually looked better on my roommate? You're delusional, I said finally, forcing a laugh to hide my genuine uncertainty. And we're both going to be late. Take it off. But Alex wasn't quite ready to surrender the jacket, turning once more in front of the mirror. I'm just saying, maybe we should have a shared custody arrangement for this jacket. Weekdays it's mine, weekends it's yours. The teasing was gentle but persistent. In your dreams, I replied, holding out my hand for the jacket. Besides, you have that North Face thing you're always wearing. Stick to your own style. Finally, with exaggerated reluctance, Alex slipped off the jacket and handed it back to me. Your loss. I was really elevating that jacket's potential. There was that grin again, playful but with a hint of something that made me wonder if there was truth behind the teasing. As I put on my jacket, I couldn't help but notice it felt different somehow. Warmer from Alex's body heat, slightly stretched in the sleeves, but also changed in a way I couldn't quite define. It was still my jacket, but now it carried this new association, this memory of seeing it on someone else who claimed it looked better. Throughout that day, sitting in my literature class and later at the campus coffee shop, I found myself thinking about that morning encounter more than I expected to. Why had it bothered me so much to see Alex in my jacket? Was it really just about the jacket, or was there something deeper at play? There's something intimate about sharing clothes. It crosses a physical boundary, creates a kind of connection that's different from other forms of sharing. When I returned to the apartment that evening, Alex was sprawled on the couch watching a cooking show and immediately looked up with that same grin from the morning. How's the jacket? Still keeping it all to yourself? This launched us into a conversation about clothes and identity that I hadn't expected to have. Alex admitted to having always admired the jacket, but assumed it was off-limits for borrowing. I explained how I'd found it and why it meant so much to me. We talked about how certain items of clothing become extensions of ourselves, how they can make us feel more confident or more authentically us. But sometimes, Alex suggested, seeing your stuff on someone else can give you a new perspective on it. Maybe even make you appreciate it more. There was wisdom in that I hadn't considered. The truth was, seeing my jacket on Alex had made me look at it with fresh eyes. I'd gotten so used to how it looked on me that I'd stopped really seeing it at all. Now I was noticing details again, the stitching along the pockets, the way the collar framed the face, the subtle variations in the leather's color. Over the next few weeks, our jacket incident became something of an inside joke between us. Alex would occasionally ask to borrow it for special occasions, and sometimes I'd say yes. There was this strange satisfaction in seeing something I loved being appreciated by someone else, even if that appreciation came with the teasing claim that it looked better on them. What I realized through this seemingly minor roommate moment was how much our identities are tied to our possessions, especially those that feel uniquely us. When Alex tried on my jacket that morning, with the sleeves tight and that confident grin growing wider, it wasn't just about the physical item being borrowed. It was about the temporary borrowing of a piece of my identity, my style, my self-expression. And yet, there was something freeing about sharing it too. The jacket didn't become less mine because someone else wore it. If anything, it gained new stories, new memories to add to its history. The jacket that had once been just mine now had this additional layer of meaning within our friendship. Looking back on that morning now, I can laugh at how protective I felt. Yes, maybe the sleeves were tight on Alex's arms. Yes, maybe that grin kept getting wider as I became more visibly uncomfortable. And yes, maybe there was even a grain of truth to the claim that it looked better on my roommate, though I'd never admit that out loud. But what matters more is how such a small moment revealed so much about friendship, identity, and the unexpected ways we connect with others. Have you ever had someone borrow something that felt uniquely yours? Did you feel that same mixture of territorial instinct and curious fascination? It's in these small, everyday interactions that we often learn the most about ourselves and our relationships with others. The next time someone tries on your metaphorical jacket, whether it's adopting your catchphrase, mimicking your style, or literally wearing your clothes, pay attention to your reaction. It might tell you more about yourself than you expect. As for Alex and me, we've developed a more flexible approach to our shared living space. Some things remain strictly personal, but we've found that the occasional borrowed item creates this unique bond, a physical manifestation of how our lives have become intertwined through proximity and friendship. And my jacket? It still hangs by the door, still my favorite piece of clothing. But now when I put it on, I sometimes catch myself checking my reflection with a bit more attention, wondering if Alex might have been right after all. Total _char_count, 13,104.